Hi, welcome to Clem Arboretum and Botanic Garden. My name is Sam Burbach and I'm the Education and Programming Coordinator here at Clem. Today I'm going to show you how to make this easy evergreen holiday swag to decorate for the holidays. It's a pretty simple project, and the supplies, we have a few bundles of supplies available for purchase online that you can pick up here at Clem this week, the first week of December. Otherwise, the supplies are pretty easy to gather at home if you've got a few evergreens. So let's talk about the supplies. I've got a couple type of firs here. This is a noble fir, and I also have a Nico fir, some white pine, some yew, a couple types of arborvitae, and a little bit of Canadian hemlock. We're also going to need some other supplies, some pine cones for decoration, a little bit of twine to attach our pine cones, a nice festive bow, and then to secure our swag, we're going to use some zip ties and a pipe cleaner, or a chenille stem, as they say in the floral business. And you're going to want a nice pair of pruning shears for cutting your greens, as well as some regular scissors for cutting your ribbon. The pruning shears won't make a nice cut on ribbon, so you'll want both types of scissors. And let's go ahead and get started. To get started, I laid down some paper so I don't get sap on the table. And then we're going to begin working with our greens. So I've set the bow and the cones and all of the additional supplies to the side. And I would recommend starting with what you have the most of as far as greens, and also what might be the boldest. And so our fir is what we are going to start with if you had purchased a bundle through Clem. But whatever you are able to cut, just find something that's pretty full, as opposed to very thin or something that you don't have a lot of. So we're going to break down some of these branches. For our swag, it is going to have some pieces that hang downwards, as well as some pieces that point upwards. We want the upper portion to be about 1/2 to 1/3 in height as the bottom section. So you can go ahead and figure out what overall size you want, and make sure the bottom pieces will be longer. So I like this branch just how it is. So I'm going to start with this for the lower portion, but let's break down some more branches. Another beautiful branch here, but for the upper portion, I don't need it quite this long. It'll stand up too tall, which means it might flop forward. So I'm going to just take some of these side pieces off, which will make a nice upper piece. It's shorter than the other. So some shorter pieces there. Another longer piece I can use at the bottom. Just kind of cutting these pieces off close to the stem so that you don't see the cut portions. Again, we can break this down a little bit into smaller pieces. So I'm going to keep this one kind of long, this one a little bit shorter. So to begin laying out our greens, I'm going to do the bottom portion first and then start adding in the top pieces. So I like the length of this one. So this is going to be my bottom piece. It's going to have somewhat of a point to the end, or you could do a teardrop shape. We'll just start filling in and see what the greens want to do. But I'll begin by laying my first piece down and then adding a little bit more on top. And we want the ends to come about together, so that way this is where we'll bind it once we get all of our greens put together. So a little bit longer piece. Kind of layer it how you think fills in nicely. And again, these are pretty bold in their size, so they are nice to start with, so you don't have to do too many. I'm going to put in some pine, because I do have some of that to work with. Kind of layering it in. I'm going to put a longer one in, so here you can see I can cut this a bit shorter. And I'm actually going to tuck it in just because there's so much stem showing. I don't want it quite right on top, so I'll layer it underneath and then put my piece of fir on top of it again, just to hide some of that bare stem. And now it kind of weaves throughout and gives a nice bit of texture there. You could just kind of layer it. And again, all the stems are going to come pretty close together here at the end. So I've got a nice base here for the bottom portion that'll be hanging down. And I want to repeat the same greens in the upper portion. So I'm going to take that smaller piece that I had saved, and we're going to start layering that in. Now we want the stems to overlap, so when we bind it together here, it will all stay together. So they are going to overlap, and I'm just going to sort of weave some of these pieces in so that it covers these cut ends. And I want them shorter so it won't flop forward. So tuck some of those in. I'm going to lay some of these pieces on top just to hide that a little bit better. And then I could go ahead and start adding in some accent greens that I don't have as much of, but will add some nice texture. Here I've got a piece of arborvitae, and it's pretty large. So here again, we're going to break it down into smaller pieces, kind of cutting off these side shoots. We could keep a longer one if we like the shape of it. I don't need as much of this. It's just going to be a nice accent. Because it's got these flat needles, it's going to help cover as well. I'm weaving them underneath here, and then I'm going to put some on top as well. So it's going to hide that cut stem, and the bow will help hide it as well. But so far we've got a longer portion for the bottom, and then a shorter portion up top here that's doesn't have to be quite as full, but I'm going to add a few more to fill it in. And then if we add a few more accent type greens, I've got some yew here, Y-E-W. Again, we're long branches, so I'm just using smaller pieces of this, cutting it down. Flipping it from behind kind of helps see where you want to make the cuts. You can do a slightly longer one here. Let's see how this looks. Maybe go underneath. I'm going to weave this through so we don't see where that cut stem is. Once you get it to a nice fullness for what size you would like, what we're going to do is bind them together. So I'm going to take it here where all the stems overlapped and flip it over so that I have a better view of where the stems are. And I'm going to take my zip ties and lay it underneath. And I don't necessarily need to grab all of the side branches, but as long as the main stems are in here, we'll be good. So I'm going to fan some of these out just to make sure I don't squish it all too much. And then secure it most of the way. Don't tighten it entirely just yet. And then I'm going to place a second one. just to make sure it's nice and secure. Again, making sure the stems are within there. Now it's not tightened all the way, so that way I can flip it over again, carefully holding on to that, and you can unhook some of the pieces that are smaller just to cover the zip ties. So just pull out some of these shorter pieces. Again, not the full stem, but just the side branching. The bow will help cover the zip ties, but a little extra greens doesn't hurt. Over one more time. And start to tighten that. Hold it up to see how it stands. That's pretty secure right there. And you could cut these shorter. And we can go ahead and add in some of our decorations. So I've got some pine cones here and a piece of twine. Just going to wrap it through some of these lower scales. Give it a little tie. Lost the end there. And then tie it up. So repeat that for all of your pine cones. And then you can start to lay them on your swag to see exactly how far down you want it to hang. And you don't need them all the same length. You can kind of stagger it. So once you have your lengths figured out, you can tie it into a knot so that they'll all stay together. So I've got a knot here, double knotted it to make it a little bit bigger because the bow is what's going to help hold it up in place. So I've got a pre-finished bow here. You can make a bow yourself if you're not sure how to. You can purchase them from a store or a florist shop, or watch a YouTube video and learn how to do that. But I've got my bow here secured with a pipe cleaner, and I'm going to take the cones, and when I wrap it around, the knot will hold it in place. So I can place this here. Again, carefully flipping it over and securing it in the back. Nice and tight. Just twist that all together and tuck it in. While we're back here, we're going to add a hanging loop. So you can use the pipe cleaner from the bow or take a second pipe cleaner. You're going to weave it underneath this zip tie. All right. Kind of wrap it around itself once. And then you can make a little loop. I like to overlap it quite a bit so that way it will have double the strength, and then just start wrapping it around itself. On both sides. So we've got our hanging loop in the back, and then we can turn it around, fluff up your bow. Using a wire-edged ribbon helps give it nice shape, even if it does get squished a little. So fluff that up, and you've got your pine cones. And there you have a nice holiday swag. Pretty simple to make. You can see the bottom portion here is longer than the upper portion, so it doesn't flop forward too much. And you could go ahead and hang this outside. It is intended for outdoor use. Indoor temperatures will make the needles fall off a lot quicker. So hang it outside on your door or anywhere else near your home and enjoy it throughout the season. If you make one, why don't you share a picture of it with us on Facebook? And we hope you enjoy and had a lot of fun. Thanks. Happy holidays.